Here was D'Amico Ryans yesterday at his media availability on the challenges the upcoming opponent for the Texans, the Indianapolis Colts, present.
And for the Colts, you can see they've been a very explosive offense. What's powered them this year. I think Daniel Jones is playing the most productive that he's played in his career. So Shane has done a good job of putting him in positions, putting guys around him to really make the plays he needs to make. So you have explosive receivers on the outside. The rookie tight end is doing a good job as well. And then, of course, running the football, Jonathan Taylor. And can't say enough good things about him as a running back. Just his balance, his power, explosiveness. You have to be able to set the edge because he can take the explosive run 50-plus yards and take it to the house. He can hit cutback lanes, right, and make you pay. So it's going to take everything we have. Defensively, first and foremost, stopping the run. But we know that's not the only emphasis with this offense. They do a good job of their play-action passing game, really timing it up at the proper time, really catching a lot of defenses off guard, and they're creating a lot of explosives there as well. So you got to play true. So I'm telling our defense, you have to play true. You have to play with elite eye discipline, elite awareness to what your job is and being on it. Because if not, Shane has always done a good job, offensively of creating eye candy, as I call it, to mess with guys' eyes, to put their guys in position to make plays.
So the Colts, started off on an absolute tear over the first 8 weeks of the season. And I think it's important to point out because, we talked about this with Ross Tucker last segment a little bit. They seem to have come back down to earth a little bit. They've scored in the last 3 weeks. So in the early part of the season, they were scoring between 30 and 40 points with regularity.
Yep.
The last 3 weeks, they scored 20 points against the Steelers, 31 points against Atlanta, but that included overtime, so they're in the 20s during regulation.
Yep.
And then 20 points in their loss to Kansas City. One of those was set up by a Leatu Letu interception right on the 4-yard line.
Yep.
So it was a 4-yard touchdown drive after that. They haven't been the same. I would be hesitant though to think, they're 100% back down to earth and they're not capable of anything more than 20 points in a game. They still have all those explosive elements. They still are really, really good at the play action. Remember last week? Did you watch the whole game last week? The Chiefs game, the Colts Chiefs game.
Yeah.
That one, Daniel Jones ran for a first down where he basically jogged because everybody bit so hard on the handoff, and then he just kept it, and it was like everybody on the defense was fooled. They're very capable of springing some big plays by fooling you on defense if you don't have good eye discipline. I just do think that teams are starting to realize, all right, well, if we can hem up Jonathan Taylor, we can and put it on Daniel Jones' shoulders or his arm, that they've got some limitations. Daniel Jones still does have some limitations as a quarterback.
The Chiefs did exactly that. Jonathan Taylor had 16 carries for 58 yards. One of those carries was he had a long of 27 where he was able to break out. They didn't hold the edge. He was able to get outside. Boy, if you don't get hands on Jonathan Taylor within the first 2 yards, then it gets really scary, man. His acceleration is something else. But I say all that to say, on the other 15 carries, aside from that one long run, he averaged 2 yards a carry. He had 15 carries for 31 yards other than that big long one. So they never got out of first gear in the run game. That's head of the snake right there is Jonathan Taylor. And yet, I feel like in this game, Seth, Nico Collins is the best pass catcher among both teams in this game. Mm-hmm. And then I feel like the next at least 3 are Indianapolis Colts. Some order. Michael Pittman, I think Alec Pierce is a huge downfield threat for them, and he's had good games against the Texans. And then obviously Tyler Warren, if we're keeping it to just, if we're expanding it to tight ends, just call it pass catchers. So they've got Josh Downs is a productive player for them. He's a good player. Yeah. So they've got some no-namers, like you pointed out before, that'll make a play. Ashton Doolin made a 49-yard catch and run in that game against Kansas City. So between the scheme and the talent level, it's going to be a challenge for the Texans defense.
The first 8 games, the Colts averaged 33 points a game on offense. Mm-hmm. The last 3 games, they've averaged 23 points per game, including at least the one that was set up by that interception.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that happens, whatever. But it wasn't. They've been bottled up. And that's just so we know what they're capable of. We know what their potential is. We know they went into last week having punted 19 times all season long. They were just, and that part of it, their ability to keep sustained drives and everything, whether or not they're punching it into the end zone, that's still there. So there's no part of me that thinks, oh, yep, Colts are falling back down to earth. I think that this very easily could have just been a lull in their season or in their schedule. They are facing the number one scoring. The Colts are facing the number one scoring defense in the NFL, though.
Yeah.
Too.
And CJ, we expect CJ Stroud to be back for this game. He's played there twice. He's had 2 of his best games as a pro in that building. The Week 18 game to get into the playoffs back in 2023, and then the season opener last year. Of course, Joe Mixon, it helped that Joe Mixon ran for 160 yards in that game.
Nico Collins just routinely goes for deep shots against the Colts in Indianapolis.
Yes.
I wonder if were the Texans the team that finally made Pat McAfee quit the Colts? And did he ever get his tickets back there?
His seats. He has one of those field level boxes, I think.
But he had relinquished it. Remember, he just quit the Colts.
Yeah,
But is he back on the bandwagon? I'm guessing he is.
I would guess it was a different, because it was week 1. Does McAfee seem like someone who would quit after week 1 of the season last year?
It was. What do you mean?
Well, the Texans. The Texans played the Colts in week 1 there.
Yeah, that's right. No, I thought it was like 2 years ago when he quit the Colts.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know if he's back on the train or not.
Oh, I'm guessing he's very much back on the bandwagon.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would guess he is. He'd be smart to be, I would think. DeMeco Ryans. Let's skip down to the offense here, Ben. He was asked yesterday, will it be the same? This will be a novel concept. The same group of offensive linemen getting trotted out there 2 weeks in a row. We haven't seen injuries have had a big thing to do with that. Will it be the same offensive line this week that you had last week?
We'll continue to roll with our offensive line. For me, it's always been about trying to get our best 5 guys out there. I think Titus has done a great job of just unselfishly moving, where he's played right tackle, right guard, left guard, whatever we've asked him. He's done it. It shows that he's a smart player to be able to handle as much as we put on his plate. So he's done that, and he's played good for us.
The offensive line, he was asked in the press conference yesterday if they're going to roll with this configuration, and he didn't answer that question. So he didn't answer it directly. And I'll be surprised if they don't go with this unless somebody's injured or something. Unless Jarrett Patterson had a secret injury, they chose to put Titus Howard out there at left guard over Jarrett Patterson. I think they're very pleased with the way Trent Brown is playing at right tackle. Ed Ingram had another good game. Really, and Ariante Ursary he's going to be the left tackle moving forward. I mean, he is grown by leaps and bounds. I think he'll be better 5 weeks from now than he is right now. He just continues to take step after step after step. So they'll roll with this, and hopefully just they can form some cohesion and everything along the way. There's going to be blips, but they can get some things done with this. They just need to get better at the second level and staying attached to blocks and all of those things. I think the running backs are not 100% always seeing the play the way they should, and they're leaving some yards on the table. But there's just it's night and day compared to how it felt the first 3 weeks of the season.
Yeah, no DeForest Buckner in this game. That's a big deal. That is a big deal, man.
What a shame.
If you were handpicking Colts to not play in this game, DeForest Buckner would be I'd probably go Jonathan Taylor, DeForest Buckner. DeForest Buckner's not going to play in this game, but I believe a neck injury is what he has. He's on he's on IR right now. One more from DeMeco Ryans. I liked hearing this because through his time as the Texans head coach, it feels like DeMeco has been maybe comparatively overly critical of the defense when that's been the side of the ball that's generally played very well, and that he's kind of soft-played it on the offense, particularly the offensive line. There's really no getting around the fact that the Texans' second-half offense against the Buffalo Bills was dismal. It was terrible. Here was D'Amico Ryans on the second half offense against Buffalo.
Doesn't necessarily correlate. We still got to do a better job moving the ball in the second half. I don't think our second half offense was good enough. And, so we have to continue to strive, continue to get better at executing the plays, calling it better. We got to do a much better job. Coaches, players, everybody, we got to be able to move the ball way more than we did in the second half. We're going to finish games the right way.
Yeah, dude, we were way too close, Seth, to having another one of those games where this is only the third time since the merger that a team with 8 sacks, a third down conversion allowed of less than whatever, and some other stat defensively, lost the game. Remember we had 4 games like that last year where they had 5 picks against the last team to have 5 picks and X amount of sacks to lose a game was in 1942 when the Madison Marauders lost to the Chicago Bears. Honestly, one play away. I mean, they had 4th and 6 deep in your territory. If Josh Allen's able to connect on a touchdown there, then we're looking at another one of these teams that have had 8 sacks in a game and lost, that one of those low percentage things.
I think that D'Amico this year, has been he's been appropriately critical of the offensive line.
Yes.
Well, at the same time, the team will at various times say, no, the O-line's open whatsoever. I think D'Amico this entire year, even when people – sometimes after games, people say, hey, D'Amico, isn't the offensive line awesome? And D'Amico will be like, they've done some good things, or they made some improvements. I mean, D'Amico's giving them the kind of praise right now that I always feel weird about giving, which is they've eliminated a lot of the negative plays that they had last year. And I mean, that's a low bar to try to get over, but it is important. The tackles for a loss and some of the stuffs in the run game, the sacks, that has all improved. And part of that is the style of offense they're running. It makes it easier to avoid those negative plays. Some of it is on improved play by the offensive line, but it's just not where you want it to be. Yep. They're not. The offensive line has made improvements, but it's not like I look at it and say, oh, yeah, boy, they are just a rolling ball of butcher's knives and nobody can stop them. They're not there yet.
Yeah, I think D'Amico has seemed less patient this year. He's still an incredibly patient person, and impatient by D'Amico standards is still way more patient than the average human being. But he has been more critical, appropriately so, of the offensive side of the ball. I think he's been more honest about the offensive side of the ball. And I think part of that is a function of, hey, man, it's year 3. I think D'Amico has at times this season definitely felt the honeymoon is over vibe from a lot of people. Look, it's gotten contentious at times in press conferences with D'Amico and people in the media, and people are less patient on the outside. He himself said after last season, we got to take it to new heights this year. Yeah. Losing in the divisional round's not good anymore. Well, damn. You don't even get an opportunity to lose in the divisional round when you're 3-5 to start the season, if that's the way the season is going to go. So I would guess that there's part of it that I'm not saying he's on the hot seat or even that his seat is even remotely warm, but D'Amico's a competitive dude, and he's probably feeling like, all right, we need to get this thing going. It's year 3. We went 10-7, 10-7. We did some good things. We won the division. We won a playoff game. But at 6-5, you're still not even close to where you need to be to feel like you can get to an AFC title game. So, we got to be better in the second half. Yeah, we need more than just a bunch of 3-and-outs. We need more than 35 yards of offense in the second half. And I don't know that he would have even gone there in the last 2 years to say what he said just now, what we just played right there.
Leatu Leitu, remember who they were very high on when they drafted a few years ago.
We got the best defensive player at 15.
He's played very well this year, but they've got Kwity Paye on the other side, and they don't have that 1-2 punch dynamic that the Texans do.
No.
At both defense positions, but he plays on both sides of the ball. So Ariante Ursary and Trent Brown versus Leatu Leitu is one of the matchups to watch this week. Mm-hmm. And I guess one thing that Davis did that helped the offensive line out, and I think helped Davis Mills himself out a lot, was he was getting rid of the ball really quickly. CJ was getting rid of the ball a lot faster this year, and that was one of the reasons that sacks and pressure hasn't been as much of an issue, is that there hasn't been time to get sacked. There were a couple of snaps in that game where Ariante Ursary had some rough snaps, but he doesn't give up a pressure because the ball was gone.
Yeah.
If it would have been anything else, then it could have been a really nasty hit on the quarterback. That's where I think I give Nick Caley more credit than a lot of people want to give him, just partly because I think his hands are tied by trying to manage this offensive line, who have shown improvement, but they're not an offensive line that you feel good about just leaving out there in 5-man protection versus a good defensive line. They're just not there yet.
I'm excited to see if we get the version of CJ that we saw against San Francisco in the early part of the Denver game. I'm excited to plunk that CJ down into this offense. I think it feels like the offense is starting to figure a few things out. And we'll see. I saw somebody earlier say, I think it was Ocho, said, how do we think Jaden Higgins and Dalton Schultz feel? And I'm paraphrasing Ocho. I apologize. The text was an hour ago. But I think it's a valid question, I suppose. How do we think Dalton Schultz and Jaden Higgins deep down feel about CJ coming back? Because they were getting targeted more over the last 3 games with Davis Mills than they were getting targeted with CJ.
Yeah.
Do they feel a certain kind of way? And Davis Mills was also finding a way to target Nico Collins double digits in each of the games, too.
Well, I think this is where it's tough because there were a lot of things that were starting to click offensively that, I mean, if you put it on a graph, you could have seen that same trend starting when C.J. Stroud was still in there. He was spreading the ball around. He was getting the ball to the rookies more. He had started targeting Nico Collins more heavily in the week before and then in the first couple series of the Denver game. So those things – I think CJ was starting to trust Jaden Higgins more as well, and that's where Davis Mills coming in. And is it him doing things differently, or is it just a continuation of the trend we were already seeing? We just flat out don't know until we get CJ out there and see it. That's the difficult part of the scenario.
Real quick text message, just hopping in. No Ross Tucker today. Ross joined us at 6:30 on the show,
and that's just by way of. Dalton had been targeted 10 times in the Seattle game.
Yeah.
And then he was targeted much in the San Francisco game. And then these last that Denver game, it was a combination job between him and Dalton. But it's not as stark a difference. Again, it was those couple games before CJ went out. Things were starting to click. And I hope that, yes, that continues on. We had a texter earlier, I thought make a pretty astute observation, or had a good thought. Oh. And I know I can't ask you to go find it right now.
Well, and it's one of those texts you have to read.
It was basically that, CJ, that Davis Mills was maybe executing the offense more the way it was supposed to be executed, just not doing it with a whole lot of accuracy or anything.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah,
you want me to read it?
Yeah.
The difference between CJ and Davis Mills is this. When CJ is playing, it looks like Nick Caley is running a bad offense. When Davis is playing, it looks like he's executing the Nick Caley offense poorly.
Yes. And I think that rings true, I think. It's with CJ, it still felt like there was a little bit of a hero ball element to it, which is going to be scattershot. With Davis, he's coming in and he's doing the best he can to execute the offense, and he can't consistently make some of those throws. That's if just the overall vibe could be when he's back, that it's more like he's running that offense and he's making those throws that Davis wasn't making.
Yeah.
And Davis made some great throws. It's the throws he misses that hurt you more than anything. It's him being 50% completion percentage after that last game. He doesn't have that same ceiling that CJ does.
It's still wild to me that people don't. There's people out there that don't see that or don't get that, or like CJ's going to be the quarterback for this team.
I think to me, Davis did an awesome job as a backup quarterback coming in.
Yeah.
He didn't do anything that made me feel like, oh wow, you're not just going to go out and find that anywhere else.
Right.
Like he made some great third down conversions. He made some great throws. Every quarterback in the league can make those throws. It's like the old Tom Brady theory of it's not as much about the things you do as the mistakes you don't make.
Right.
Or the easy throws that you don't miss. And that's where Davis is just still lacking in some regards.
I hate the conversation because it takes what Davis accomplished as a backup quarterback the last 3 weeks and somehow puts it under a hypercritical microscope. And look, there were times Davis did move the offense. You know, there was a reason why Buffalo was able to hang around in that game. They didn't move the ball in the second half. He's your backup quarterback.
Yeah.
He went 3-0. Like that's the threshold for what I'm expecting out of Davis Mills is different than what I'm expecting out of C.J. Stroud.
So again, to go back to that theme of, okay, was it that Davis Mills ran the offense differently, or was it that things were starting to click before CJ got injured, and then this is a continuation of that? Jaden Higgins in the San Francisco game, he was targeted 8 times. You know, when Davis Mills was in, he was targeted 7 times, 9 times. Like, it's not this stuff. It was midway through the season when the rookies and everything else, the entire offense as a whole, theoretically could just be starting to gel, and guys are comfortable where they're supposed to be, and that's what we had seen. But it was 2-3 games where that's what it looked like, and then CJ got concussed. The Denver game looked very much like he was executing the Nick Caley offense well.
Yeah. If you're of the belief that Dalton Schultz and Jaden Higgins have an issue with C.J. Stroud coming back based on the number of targets they might see, you're just looking at the season totals that are being dragged down by the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season, especially with Higgins, and the lack of playing time. Schultz is at least out on the field most of the time. Higgins and Noel relatively barely got on the field, as opposed to looking at the trend, which is Jaden Higgins has made himself a big part of the offense going back to the San Francisco game.
Yeah, and you go back to early in the season when you have rookies out there. I mean, there were times where clearly just people weren't in the right spots. The spacing of the receivers was all screwed up. There were just things that were disjointed and not operating properly. And as a quarterback, there's only so many times when you're looking for a guy and he's not exactly where he's supposed to be, where it gets really hard to trust those guys. Yeah. And I think Higgins especially is now more of a veteran. As D'Amico said during the bye week, okay, I don't consider these guys rookies anymore. They're just executing their roles in the proper manner as opposed to early in the season.